Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In the latest turn of the Israel-Hamas war, international attention has shifted once again to the political and propaganda battlefield. This time it comes after Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei openly mocked Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on social media. The post spread rapidly across different platforms, gaining traction not only among Iran's allies but also among observers across the world who are following the conflict closely. The mocking message struck a sharp tone and portrayed Netanyahu as both weakened and desperate, attempting to hold on to power while Israel faces mounting criticism over its ongoing military operations in Gaza. The timing of this attack on social media is crucial because it comes at a moment when images and reports from Gaza continue to circulate globally, amplifying outrage and placing Israel under deeper scrutiny. Khamenei's words targeted Netanyahu personally, accusing him of failing to achieve the military objectives that were promised at the start of Israel's expanded ground operations in Gaza. According to the Iranian leader, the Israeli government is showing cracks under the strain of international condemnation and the rising casualties from weeks of intense bombardments and incursions into densely populated urban areas. Khamenei called Netanyahu a defeated man whose political life is coming to an end. He accused the Israeli prime minister of trying to use the war as a political tool for his own survival, but claimed it has backfired, creating even greater instability within Israel itself. Observers point out that it is unusual for Khamenei to use this type of language directly on social media. The Iranian leader is often stern and ideological, but mocking is not typically the style of his official messages. The decision to publicly humiliate Netanyahu signals Tehran's effort to show strength at a time when regional tensions are climbing. Iran is a key backer of Hamas and other armed groups that confront Israel from Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. This mocking post is being interpreted as part of a wider strategy where Iran is seeking to rally its allies, portray Israel as weak and fractured, and undermine Israel's credibility in front of its supporters and the global audience. The power of social media here is significant because it reaches beyond official statements into the wider world, where narratives are shaped not only by governments but also by the viral spread of messages and memes. The Israeli government has so far not issued a direct response to the specific insult made by Khamenei. Instead, Israeli officials continue to focus their public communications on the ongoing military operations, stating that Hamas will be eliminated and that Israel's security goals remain unchanged. Netanyahu himself has appeared in several press briefings in recent days, insisting that the war effort is justified and that Israel will not stop until it has destroyed the capabilities of Hamas. However, the mocking words from Khamenei now hang in the background, serving as a reminder that even as Israel fights on the ground, it is also losing battles on the information and perception front. This latest development ties into the broader propaganda war taking place around the Israel-Hamas conflict. Beyond the bombs and missiles, there is also a struggle for narratives, images, and words. Israel has long presented itself as a state defending its citizens from terrorism, while Hamas and its allies portray themselves as resistance forces standing against occupation. Iran, by amplifying Khamenei's mocking statement, is working to build momentum for the latter narrative. Iran's media has replayed and reshared the words across television and online platforms, declaring that Netanyahu is collapsing under the weight of his own failures. This message is intended to inspire pro-resistance groups and supporters of the Palestinian cause across the Middle East and beyond. The timing of Khamenei's remarks is also connected to internal Israeli politics. Netanyahu has been under pressure for months, not only because of the war but also because of political instability, corruption charges, and divisions within Israeli society. Protest movements that were already strong earlier in the year have not completely disappeared, and critics accuse him of using war as a distraction from his own political troubles. Khamenei, by mocking him openly, is trying to expose those fractures and highlight them to the world. This kind of targeted ridicule is not only meant for external consumption but also intended to resonate inside Israel itself, where citizens might feel that their leader is being humiliated on the global stage. International analysts note that this episode represents the intersection of military conflict and psychological warfare in modern conflicts. Leaders are not only judged by battlefield outcomes but also by how they are perceived on social media platforms. By taunting Netanyahu online, Khamenei is attempting to dominate part of the global conversation. Social media gives authoritarian figures a tool to reach directly into the information bloodstream, bypassing traditional state channels and ensuring that their words echo across audiences who might not otherwise hear them. The mocking of Netanyahu has been picked up by international media outlets, creating headlines and amplifying Iran's message far beyond the region. Meanwhile, the war in Gaza continues with devastating consequences for civilians. Reports from humanitarian groups describe widespread destruction of homes, schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. Thousands of Palestinians have been killed since the conflict escalated, and the humanitarian crisis deepens each day. The mocking tone of Khamenei's statement is therefore placed against a backdrop of immense human suffering, making it both a political jab and a reminder of the stakes in this war. Netanyahu insists that the war is necessary for Israeli security, but critics argue that the scale of civilian suffering will only generate more hostility in the long term. Khamenei leverages this argument, portraying Israel as both brutal and ineffective in reaching its stated goals as the war drags on the use of ridicule as a political weapon, highlights the growing importance of psychological and symbolic victories. Even if Israel gains ground militarily, its leaders must also contend with how they are perceived across the region. Khamenei's mockery of Netanyahu is a way of signaling to allies and enemies alike that Iran sees Israel as vulnerable and desperate in the broader context of Middle Eastern geopolitics. Such symbolic actions can carry weight by emboldening resistance groups and putting pressure on Israeli leadership to prove their strength. The response from Hamas and its aligned media has been enthusiastic. Palestinian channels have shared Khamenei's post, declaring it proof that even Israel's enemies at the highest levels view Netanyahu as a failure. This bolsters morale among fighters and supporters who see themselves engaged in an existential struggle against Israel. The mocking statement therefore functions not just as an insult but as a morale-boosting weapon in a conflict where symbols matter almost as much as bullets. Western governments, meanwhile, are closely watching these exchanges, while the United States continues to support Israel diplomatically and militarily. Officials are aware that the propaganda war has real consequences for global public opinion. In European capitals, debates intensify over how much support should be given to Israel as civilian casualties mount. By mocking Netanyahu, Khamenei is also seeking to sway international audiences who may be questioning Israel's conduct in Gaza. The more Israel is portrayed as desperate or incompetent, the more its support among foreign publics could erode. Political commentators argue that the ridicule of Netanyahu may have a personal sting because the Israeli leader has cultivated an image of strength and determination for decades. He presents himself as the guardian of Israel's security and the leader who will stand firm against Iran's threats. For such a figure to be mocked openly by the very rival he claims to resist is a blow to his carefully constructed image. Even if the insult does not change policy on the ground, it resonates in the arena of perception, where reputation is as critical as military power. This is not the first time Iranian leaders have criticized Netanyahu, but the use of mockery and social media amplification makes this moment unique. It shows a shift in Iran's tactics, moving from traditional rhetoric to a style that is tailored for the digital age. Social media mockery spreads faster than formal speeches and is more likely to be picked up by younger audiences who consume politics through short viral clips and images. This adaptation demonstrates how state leaders are increasingly aware that the battle for hearts and minds happens online in real time. As the days move forward, the question becomes how Israel and Netanyahu himself will handle this growing narrative challenge. Will the Prime Minister attempt to brush off the insult, or will he respond directly, risking further escalation in the war of words? The answer may depend on how the Israeli public reacts, and whether his political opponents use Khamenei's ridicule as ammunition in their own critiques. What is clear is that the Israel-Hamas war is no longer confined to Gaza or southern Israel. It is now also being waged across the digital battlefield, where leaders compete for control of narratives. The ongoing exchanges underline that in modern warfare, information is as critical as tanks or drones. The mocking of Netanyahu may not change the outcome of military battles, but it could influence alliances' morale and the way history remembers this conflict. Khamenei, by ridiculing his rivals, seeks to position Iran as confident, unafraid, and victorious in the face of Israel's struggle. Hello everyone, thank you for staying with us as we continue to follow these breaking updates from the Israel-Hamas war. We will keep monitoring the situation both on the ground and in the digital sphere, where battles for perception continue to unfold.